I want to record, and I record a lot. When I get bored, I record. And I need to go take a painting course and start painting, or get me a complete art studio in here where I can start drawing again and keep myself entertained. But I want to record because I find it interesting how there are individuals that try to correlate a person's situation. And what I find interesting is that there's such a horrible environment in the medical field today that I just stand amazed where these people come from, where they study the medical profession, and who creates them to be subject matter experts in an environment that they have no familiarity with. And what I find interesting is that they try to correlate a situation with a certain type of disease, and then try to make an excuse on why to get rid of a person, and then blame a disease in which they emphasized and correlated it to a particular individual. And I stand amazed because, in 2009, in 2008, I was removed from my career and went through a tremendous, circumstances that just completely, I was in disbelief in terms of the mentality of individuals working for the Department of Defense for discrimination against women. And again, the discrimination was brought against me so they can bring two men into the division. And they did hire the two men. They were brothers. And, with little expertise at that. And I had worked already 4 years with the subject matter expert, and he had many years. And of course, I worked at lower levels in the same commodity area practically my whole career. It was one of the commodity areas in which I was very familiar with. But what I find very interesting is the fact that when a woman fights for her rights within the Department of Defense after she's been discriminated against, they love to bring in the elements of mental illness. And it's primarily brought forth by individuals that do not want to take corrective action for things that they did in terms of discrimination. And so they try to create an atmosphere of mental illness so that it removes the accountability of what this organization does, and it reshifts the focus on the individual in which they discriminated against. And so, I find it interesting that at the time I went through tremendous efforts to address women's rights. I wrote an article in the newspaper in Yuma, Arizona, about female discrimination in the 21st century. And I've articulated in there the type of efforts that the government takes against women or individuals that file discrimination complaints. They put in measures of retaliation. Now, I'm not going to say who specifically within the government creates an atmosphere of retaliation, but the fact that they do is relevant. And so they try to create an atmosphere of mental illness. And, there's a lot that occurred during my career, last ending of my career when I was removed from my position from discrimination. But then they took my house away, my brother passed away, and on and on and on. And, I did see a therapist for it because I had, concerns that my life was at risk, especially under the events that occurred, the treatment that occurred to me. And then after I filed a formal complaint at the EEO office, the following morning I was in a car accident. And, and I have very details about what occurred and who was involved and who were the point of contacts and the exact dates to this day. And, there are measures in place that try to create an atmosphere of harm so that people do not become aware of truth in terms of how there are measures in place that may be emphasized in order to remove an individual to prevent disclosure of what occurs to people that fight for their rights, constitutional rights, and freedom. And so they create an atmosphere of retaliation for the primary purpose of continuation in a harassment mode, but yet trying to hide the fact that they are actually harassing the individual. And I think it's highly because they've gotten away with it with other individuals. But irrelevant. That's not my topic right now. What I do find interesting, though, is that, and by the way, I'm totally normal, went to a therapist, and they said I was traumatized. Anyone that experiences being thrown out of a 20-year career, harassed, a car accident that was totaled, a family member that was killed, a home that was taken away, and retaliation measures of harassment by law enforcement all at one time, they were amazed at how well I handled it. They were just amazed. In fact, some of them said they really admired me. And they claimed that I was traumatized, completely traumatized. Which they were right. I was traumatized. Again, that's not my topic. And so, anxiety is something that I get very when people try to set you up for something, then you become, because of what you experienced through the last days of your career and everything that followed through with that, you become very leery of people. And so, therefore, you address concerns of anxiety. That, I've been deemed totally normal and how to handle it, and they gave me advice and life goes on. But what I do find interesting is how they try to loop different medical things into its environment. Because before, when I used to read the articles, it would talk about mental illness, and I've been deemed not mentally ill. So now what they're doing is they're trying to throw articles on as I open up my website, of anxiety and linking it to depression, which there's no connection. And these idiots that try to connect it are up to foul play. And there's no connection between anxiety and depression. They're completely two separate. And I've studied psychology, and I've worked with people my whole life. There's no integration of those two. There is not. And a lot of people try to also claim that a person that may be discouraged, let's see, they lost their home, they lost family member, loved ones, they either lost a child, they went through a difficult divorce leading to poverty, and on and on and on. And because you're trying to absorb those type of environments, and any normal person wouldn't be walking out freaking ass whistling Dixie if they went through all of that. They're idiots to expect people to be like that. They're freaking ass idiots. These people that are claiming, health things with individuals, they don't comprehend it. They themselves need to see psychiatrists. They're idiots, and they have no business being in the medical field. They don't comprehend human nature. They do not. And so what I find interesting is how they try to loop things to try to grasp things and place an individual in a particular category. And especially if they're considering foul play, how convenient to place them in a particular category. And the reason I have great concerns about that is because I knew an individual by the name of Colonel Moody. And he was a wonderful colonel. And he was not a person that ever dealt with depression. He did not. And measures were put in place where they claim he committed suicide. And I don't believe that for a minute. I do not believe it. And I knew another individual, you work with thousands of people like I did. You know a lot of people. Well, there was an individual by the name of Bob Ledette who was the happiest person that you ever did see. Loved people, loved working with people, had such an upbeat personality, and they claimed he committed suicide. You know, so when you start trying to categorize individuals, the solid therapists that are really truly in helping people, their primary focus will tell you, our goal is that you live a happy, productive life. That is what they say. And that's what I was told to me by my therapist. The goal is that you live a happy, productive life. And then the government hires their own people to try to falsify false accusations of medical so that they don't have to take accountability for what they do to an individual. Lead him to anxiety. And they hire their own freaking ass psychiatrist or whatever within their own agencies to work for them to falsify accusations against an individual that was fighting for their rights. And they were retaliated against for fighting for their rights, which is a ration of Crock. So, you know, these individuals that are in an atmosphere that their goal is to try to make people miserable, place them in a category, and then lead them to freaking ass death, I got a problem with that. I do have a problem with that. Because that is not the way people work. It's like this environment that has transitioned from prosperity, happiness, joy, love, you know, enjoy life, to complete misery, depression, anxiety. Anxiety is separate from depression. Depression, not wanting to live, and on and on and on, and leading them to death. I question these psychiatrists. Here's an example as well. My sister Elena, I believe that something else happened to her. I don't believe it was medical. I think it was induced. Whatever happened to my sister Elena, it was induced. And, you know, in 2012, she had a little toe amputated. Her circulation to her body, I mean, she had the most beautiful complexion. She had a beautiful complexion. And, you know, what the nurse told her was, you're going to get your leg amputated. Get used to it. What kind of nurse would tell an individual that in 2012? They set her up for it. They set her up to get her leg amputated, and they did amputate her leg. These type of people have no reason to exist. And I'm not God, and they do exist. But I question what they're doing with individuals. You just have a toe amputated. My sister did. And then the nurse tells her, rather than saying you're going to be healthy, we're going to work on your circulation. She didn't have a problem with circulation. I believe what happened to her was completely controlled. And that's my right. She was my sister. I have the right to believe whatever I want, whether people like it or not. I have that right. But who in their right frame of mind has a patient that has their toe amputated and then tells them, you're going to get your leg amputated, get used to it? And exactly in that manner. What did that do to her morale and her future thought process of what she was going to have to endure, which she did? They amputated her leg, and in fact, they amputated the wrong leg. What I'm going to say is this. It is horrible what is going on with the medical profession today. And these individuals, they have no right being in the medical profession. They do not. And trying to loop whatever they can for the purpose of destroying an individual, these people, if they don't talk You're going to be healthy, prosperous. We're going to do everything to keep you completely healthy. Then they need to get out of the medical profession. They got no business in it. Oh, they had brain damage. Oh, they had depression. Oh, they had this, they had that. Well, bullshit. If they were under your care, well, you need to go to jail if they're dead and they're under your care. If a patient dies of some kind of whatever and they're under your freaking ass care and you're in the medical profession, then you need to go to jail for their death. You need to start going to jail for their death. And they better not be lazing me through my back, through the couch, as I'm sitting here, and birds are chirping. Trying to laze my heart as this little red light is flashing on my phone. Let's hope it's not flashing to indicate that it's identifying my heart and trying to laze me from the back to the front. Not that people would do that, not in America. Not the neighbors in Castle Rock, Colorado, 1905 Graphite Court. Not the government that would install things to get rid of a person who's trying to, get an understanding of why so many people are dying of medical problems when they shouldn't be. When you're under the care of individuals, I was shocked with my sister Elena. They amputated her toe and they told her, go on. They didn't even put a protective boot or anything on around her foot. And I was shocked. I went to go visit her. They wanted to leave it everything just the way it was. She could have injured it walking. And I had to bring it up to them. Isn't that supposed to be covered and protected? Oh, well, yeah, we could put something on it. I'm like, what the hell? I went and talked to somebody and they're like, yeah, that's supposed to be protected. I mean, it gets to the point where society is just a mess. And in patients, if they're dealing with whatever, the goal is to have them happy, healthy, productive, living, enjoying life. That is the purpose. And if there's a medical environment that's in place to cause misery, depression, and leading to death, then every individual that is taking care of that person, all their asses need to go to jail. Their asses need to go to jail. Or they need to get the hell out of that profession. Because you don't establish an environment that leads to misery. You do not. And the medical, you always hear about, medical expenses are getting so high. You know what? I was paying for medical benefits. I was. On a monthly basis. And I'm going to say this. It's like people try to create health problems because a person does have medical insurance so that they can get these outrageous bills and be paying nothing but have a medical problem and a financial problem. Now that's life. Well, that's brilliant. Well, that brings joy. Bullshit. I pay as I go to the doctors. And I don't need to go often. I bought equipment to take care of my back, and I'm very conscientious of my back at home. And my bills are a lot less. And I take care, I'm proactive. I'm very proactive. I don't get injured and I don't get sick. I'm very proactive. And if you go to Looney Tukes or whatever the hell you call them, that their goal is to keep you miserable, what's the point? I could not help my sister. I could have helped my sister Elena, but the government kept me isolated, trapped, without transportation, with no money, no income. I mean, they completely kept me isolated from my sister Elena. And she's dead today. And I believe without a shadow of a doubt, if I had been around her and she would have been under my care rather than Randy's care, another person that was sick and diabetic, my sister would be alive today. And she would have never had her leg amputated. Without 100% confidence, she would be alive today. And what was horrific, she was starting to regain some strength. And then there was a car accident. She was pulling out of an area, getting ready to take a left turn, and a vehicle came with no lights on and rammed right into them. A horrible accident. When she was getting strong. I don't know what's going on in society, but I'm going to say this. This freaking idea of car accidents and negativity and concepts of, depression, brain injury, this garbage and this medical professions, they need to get the hell out of the medical profession. And these insurance companies need to start questioning these medical providers. How many of your patients are dying? If they're dying under your care, you're not getting a freaking ass dime from us. And good luck getting it from the patient. And put them out of business. And that's what the insurance companies need to do. They need to start questioning people on why they have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 worth of medical bills. And the person is dead. Nope. Maybe that's why I'm freaking ass isolated. Because I see things differently. You don't freaking ass kill a person, and then after you put them through tremendous misery, financially, and then they're dead, and then still try to recoup money from insurance companies. Y'all freaking ass doctors need to get the hell out of this profession. You freaking ass psychologists, stop trying to freaking ass come up with excuses of how to loop shit into somebody's life to cause misery. Because that in itself is bullshit, and I don't believe in psychiatrists. Although I've been deemed normal by them. Because who determines their freaking ass state of mind? That's how I think. What makes your ass smarter than mine? And what makes your ass more intelligent to make a medical decision psychologically? How do I know what the hell your psychological state of being is? It is the truth. It's the truth. And they need to stop looping any kind of excuse to lead someone into a path of negativity rather than into a path of happiness, joy, prosperity, healthy, and long life, longevity. Enjoying life. And that's not happening today. It is not. And I question these medical professions. And you know why they've gotten away with it? Because people pay them. These insurance companies, they pay them. And the people that go to their care, they pay them. And that needs to change. The medical profession is horrible today in society. It's just horrible. And this Obamacare and all these other kind of insurance. I went through a complete analysis of the Obamacare and through other insurance companies and the decisions they were making. I read every freaking paper on how that was going to affect an individual. And I'll say this, there's so much concerns about the cost that insurance companies are having to pay these doctors rather than to find out why these doctors are charging freaking ass outrageous prices and getting paid, and the patients are dying. Hey, patient dies under your care, You know the saying that when you have attorneys, and I have a bone to pick with freaking ass attorneys too, because they would refuse to take my case, my EEO case on female discrimination. They refused to take it, and I had a one case. I won my case. They discriminated against me, and I have a bone to pick with these freaking ass attorneys. But my thought process is, there's some attorneys that say if you don't win, we don't get a dime. Well, if you don't live, we don't get a dime. They need to apply that same shit to medical professions. Medical doctors. You get worse, we don't get a dime. Why the hell go to them if you're going to get worse? Freaking ass take care of your own self at home, and then your freaking ass is probably going to be healthier than you've ever been in your whole freaking ass life. That is the truth. So, I'm recording this. I'm so sick of people trying to make people miserable and trying to loop excuses to find a way to get rid of their life. Oh, depression. Depression doesn't lead to death. That's bullshit. If these psychiatrist people that don't comprehend how to help those people, their asses need to get out of that business. They do. And so that's my thought process. You got a patient under your care and they're not getting better? You're fired. How about that shit? My name's Edith Del Carmen Blankenship. Today's June 7th, 2018. And I'm sick of the medical bullshit. That.